guys, it's Jessica with Southern Sparrow, and we are in our Maj 102 series, and we're deep diving the National Mahjong League card. We're going section by section. So we have gotten to our Quints section. Quints obviously is 5 of a kind. So that is an interesting option when we know that there are only really 4 of a kind of most tiles except for flowers in a set of Mahjong tiles. So what does that mean for you? That means that any hand in this Quints section is going to require jokers. My personal rule of thumb for playing the Quints section and whether or not I will play in the Quints section is if I have 3 or more jokers after the Charleston or after the deal, really, because you're not allowed to play or you're not allowed to pass jokers during the Charleston. So if I have 3 or more jokers on the deal, then I will consider a Quints hand. If I don't have 3 or more jokers, I'm not gonna play a Quints hand because I know I need at least 2 for most of them. And it's always nice to have some extra flexibility of jokers within these hands because they are kind of hard to build. So let's go hand by hand and talk about the ways that we can be flexible with this section. So within the Quints section, again, grab your National Mahjong League card so you have it in front of you. It can be kind of hard to see these numbers on my card, but we're looking at Quints and we're looking at this top line. And it is shown as flower, flower, a pung, 3 of a kind of 1s in one suit, a Kong of 2s in a second suit, and a quint, 5 of a kind of 3s in a third suit. And our parentheses tell us any 3 suits, any 3 consecutive numbers. So that means that the suits can be in any which way, as always. So I've got it here on my rack as dots, bams, cracks, but you could play it as cracks, dots, bams, cracks, bams, dots, whatever makes sense for the tiles that you have. And then the second half of our parens tells us any 3 consecutive numbers. So they've shown it as 1s, 2s, 3s. We're playing it on our rack today as 7s, 8s, 9s. You can obviously play that as 4, 5, 6, as 6, 7, 8. Whichever tiles you end up with on your rack, they are applicable to this hand. So don't get discouraged when you see, oh, it's all 1s, 2s, and 3s across the whole stinking card. I don't have anything I can play. Lots and lots of hands, if you read the parentheses, have the optionality to switch out those numbers, just like this hand here. So we have our 3 suits, we have our 3 consecutive numbers, and you'll see that we've got our jokers built in. So reminder, you can't use jokers in this pair, but you can use jokers everywhere else in this hand. So it makes it actually a lot easier to make than most people think. I think a lot of people avoid the Quints section. A lot of people avoid singles and pairs, especially when they're new to this game because it can feel overwhelming. But again, if you have 3 or more jokers, go for a Quints hand. They're actually really fun to play and they're very, very flexible in this way of being able to switch out the numbers, being able to rearrange the suits. So that's the first line there in our Quints section. Let's look at the second line down in Quints and let's see which, that's this rack here. So let me pull this rack in for us. And this second line down, again, it's shown as, oh, I have it here incorrectly. So let's find, ooh, okay. It's shown as 1s and 2s. I had it wrong. So I had it as 4s and 4s. It's actually 2 consecutive numbers. So I apologize. Let me swap that out. So we need to find some 5s. So pretend this is a real game, guys. And I am now kind of in a bit of a scramble, right? I'm like, uh-oh, I've made a clerical error. I can tell you, there have been so many times that I've thought that I was quite close to winning. And then you look down and you go, oh, clerical error. So don't get discouraged. This happens to people who've been playing for a long time. It happens to people who are teaching people how to play Mahjong on the internet like me. You'll look down and you realize, oh my God, I've made a grave mistake. But it can all be fixed. So we're looking for 5s now. We know that we've got our 4s in our BAM. Let's look for some more of those 5s. So I have 5 cracks here, so that's on an opposing suit. So let's look at how this line is set up, right? So on this card, it has it as 1s, news, 2s, okay? You have a quint of the 1s, a Kong, 4 of a kind of the news, and then, of the north, and then a quint of the 2s. But let's read those parentheses. They're so important. It says any Y'all, multiple clerical errors in one video. My goodness. Any one suit. Jessica, read the parentheses. They're very important. Any one suit. We need to find the fives of the 5 BAMs. So we will look for those momentarily. Any one suit, it's going to be all BAMs for us today. Any 2 consecutive numbers, girl, read those parentheses, and any wind. So it's shown with the north. I've chosen souths. That's the one thing I had right on this rack from the get. Let's collect up these 5 BAMs. Here we go. Finally, we have our any one suit. We're choosing to play it in BAM, right? We have our BAMs here and our BAMs here. We have any 2 consecutive numbers. It's shown on our card as 1s and 2s. We have it as 4s and 5s. And any wind, we've done souths. So let this be a lesson to you. Clerical errors happen. You can get very close, or in my case, I had thought that I was ready to maj and ready to show you guys how to build this hand. I had it a little bit wrong. So don't let that be a reason, unless you've declared mahjong erroneously, don't let that be a reason to give up on the game. Start to look for, okay, how can I pivot? How can I change this clerical error? The lucky thing is I had a lot of jokers. Maybe if I had really made that in a game, I would have had to shift a couple of jokers over to make up for the fact that maybe some of these were already out and I would need to then find those 4 BAMs. But it's not a lost cause if you find halfway through the game, oh no, I've made a very grave mistake in the way I was planning this hand. You're either then going to first look at your exposures, where are you locked in, and then where can I shift to with those exposures? Maybe you can make a change like I did here and keep the same hand that you were planning and just start to throw the wrong tiles that you had and gather the tiles that you need. But if you look up and you have an exposure and you see that what you would need to pivot to for that same hand has already been thrown, then you're going to look for another hand on the card, another line on the card that has the same exposure, and start to build a new pivot hand from there. And we'll talk about that in a separate video. Okay, that is the second line on Quints. Let's see if we built this third line correctly to work with what it actually says on the card. Okay, so this is our third line down in Quints. It has flower, flower. It's shown in all 1s. So this is, any like numbers like that last section that we talked about. You have your pair of flowers. You have a quint of 1s in 1 suit, a pair of 1s in a second suit, and a quint of 1s in a third suit. And I chose to show this as 2s, and I do have all 3 suits, and I do have the pattern correct. So let's read those parentheses because that's where it tells us what we can do. Any 3 suits, any like numbers. So that's where I was able to say, okay, yes, I have dots, I have cracks, I have BAMs. That's all 3 suits represented. And any like numbers, meaning I had a bunch of 2s from the deal. I'm going to go up and do this hand as 2s. You can do it as 3s, you can do it as 4s, you can do it as 5s, but it all has to be the same number across the whole line, similar to that any like number section. So let's say that you're early on in the game building out an any like number section, but you haven't been able to come across the dragons that you need, or, you were going for the line that had 4 flowers, but you only ended up with 2. And now all of a sudden you've got a bunch of jokers. Yes, you could still make that work over here, but you can also then pivot up here to the Quints section and look at this last line here. And something important to note about the Quints section, all 3 of these lines are exposed. So you don't have those little closed hands that we normally find kind of at the bottom of every section. Quints is all exposed. So you can call for all of your exposures throughout the game in any of the Quints hands. So those are the 3 hands in the Quints section. That's also how we pivot and how we make up for clerical errors. And I hope this was helpful. Happy moshing, y'all.